Hello, Jake here. The episode you're about to listen to breaks from the traditional mold of Beyond the Tour. This is actually an archived podcast that I recorded back in 2015 when I first got into golf. The focus of the podcast was exactly as it sounds. It was about chasing scratch. So it's all about game improvement, and it's interviews with a bunch of different people from across the golf world. The episode is relatively evergreen. It's still pretty good content, even though it's 9 years old, but there are references to people and places and products that no longer exist. So it's important to keep that in mind, but I'm sure you'll enjoy it anyway. So let's get stuck in. Welcome back, listener. As I said at the top of the show, today's guest is Bill Presse. Bill, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm doing very well. And so you're somebody that I ran into at the PGA show in Orlando a couple of weeks ago, and you've got a very interesting product.
Yes. We have a putter called Directed Force Putters, and it's the world's first lie angle balanced putter, which means that we have the lie angle of a shaft, and a lot of putting strokes creates a different lie angle, or a different arc. And so the more upright the lie angle of the shaft, the shallower the arc, and vice versa. So we were able to figure out a way to stabilize the head so that it stays perpendicular to the arc, not
To the arc.
intended target line. Yeah.
Right. We'll go into why that's important. I've got a couple of questions pretty much off the bat, but what I'll do first, I think, is that it could be good to get some perspective as to who you are and what, I guess, brought you to where you are now. So for our listeners' sake, give us a little bit of your background.
Sure. Well, let's see. I guess I'm 46 now, and I started doing club repair when I was about 12. That back when we had persimmons, and so I got pretty deep into restoring classic persimmons, re-whipping, pouring lead, inserts, the works. And then kind of went through the gamut on that, and then got more into instruction. Played some golf down in Arizona at the Golf Academy and a couple of mini tour events here and there as growing up. Became a director of instruction at Golf Tech in the States, then moved over to making these putters. And so that's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Where do you think the seed was sowed to actually create this putter?
There was a fella that created a putter that, well, I guess you might call it target balanced. And I had kind of seen that many, it was back in the 70s actually, but I had taken my face balance putter and I had cut the grip off. I just missed a Monday qualifier after playing really well, and I just didn't make anything. And so I was pretty frustrated when I got home, and I had it locked in outside my left tricep, and I was just relaxing my hands, and the putter face instantly spun open. And so it kind of reminded me that, there was a putter way back when that claimed kind of the same thing. And so I kind of got into it a little bit more, and then I invented this device called the revealer, and these other putters didn't actually stay straight. So what I did is I went back to the drawing board and used 3D printers and SolidWorks engineering, and found a method that actually stabilizes the putter to the arc no matter how hard you hit it. That's where we really differ. So that's kind of how I think about.
Are you an engineer?
No, I do enjoy math and physics. Being a golf instructor, you have to have an understanding of acceleration and physics and to a certain degree, but I never actually went to school for it. It was just, more or less out of desperation to make more putts. And it turned out nobody had ever done it. So I threw a patent down on it.
So how easy was it to develop the putter that does exactly what the directed force putter does?
It was definitely a process, trial and error. The 3D printers are really great because you can design stuff and then print them. And then I would take lead tape, bring them up to weight a little bit. And then I invented this revealer, and through trial and error and some light bulbs went off here and there, I was able to actually stabilize the head. That was really the key thing, is the revealer was a great device that could be used to putt and demonstrate a putter's true balance.
Explain for our listener, it'd be quite hard to do in the audio. So what we'll do, we'll pop some videos up along with this podcast, but try to explain what the revealer is a little bit more so our listener understands.
Well, all putters have a straight shaft, and the center line of the shaft is called a Z-axis. And then the putter shaft needs to be cradled at the bottom, somewhere down the shaft, between the handle and the head. And so what I did is I invented this device that has two cross members and then two long poles that basically make a rectangle. And at the top in the center, there's a swivel. It's a very low friction swivel with no play in it. And then at the bottom, we have a little trough that's machined in the other cross member. And so the shaft can lay in there, and it's got some felt with a silicone coating on it. And of course, the swivel is greased. And so it's very low friction. And so that allows any putter to be suspended and put in a play position, and you actually putt with it. And that's the reality. Some of the machines that I've seen in the past, they have a lot of friction in them, and they really inhibit the true physics of the head. And it's almost like masking it. And my revealer is just versatile. You can put just about any putter in it and put it in any lie angle and swing it at any speed. And it just lets you see what a putter's doing without your hand touching it.
Naturally, yeah. It's pretty ingenious, actually. It's such a simple thing, but you see straight away a putter's characteristics, don't you?
Yeah. The object was to validate my science, and as a golf professional and teaching professional, I always like to be able to prove something before I just throw it out there, and got to be quantifiable and repeatable, and it's got to actually work. And from that methodology of thinking, that was really kind of how I came about the revealers. I just wanted to make an unbiased tool that anybody, anywhere can put any putter into and see what it does without biasness.
Yeah. Now, I guess the big question that I had was, there are so many different putters out there. Why didn't you just use the best of what's already out there instead of going out and inventing a new one?
Well, the main reason is that none of them stay straight. And I went through the list of many different putters, and I'm going to resist from naming them on your show, but basically none of them do what they say they're supposed to be doing. And we prove that over and over. Anything that toe up doesn't mean it's stabilized. So we had several putters at the PGA show come over and say, well, ours does the same thing. And as soon as we put it in the revealer, it clearly was not balanced or zero torque. And the design of my putter, as a pioneer, I don't want to make something that looks like somebody else's work.
Yeah.
So I want my own iconic design. And there's a reason for our particular putter shape, not only for a moment of inertia, but there's a bean-shaped hole in the back, which you can put 2 golf balls in and do a tempo training drill. You can put 1 ball in there and make sure your putter's sold out. And then, of course, there's a ball sweep in the back. So those are some little features that were thrown in there and also did not inhibit the physics of the putter.
So those features are actually in there purposefully?
Yeah, absolutely.
In the putter? Yeah. Right. So explain that, Alyssa, again. You really do need to have a look at this putter. So head across to the site huntingscratch.com/DF, and you're able to take a look at it and get a really good idea of what the putter is, what it looks like. But those training features you've built in specifically for that.
Yeah. When I, as an instructor and putting coach myself, when I fit somebody or I'm teaching them something, when I walk away, and I think any putting coach would agree, when you walk away, kind of keeping your fingers crossed that the player will get back in those positions when you're not there. And that was one of the reasons for this shape and putting a single ball in the back. As soon as you put the toe of the putter up or the heel up, the ball rolls to one side or the other. And the only way that will stay centered is if it's sold out. So if the putter's sold out, that means you're probably back in the right position that you got fitted for. And that's super important.
Yep. So that fitting part, no, most people wouldn't get fitted for a putter, would they?
Oh, well, unfortunately, no. There's been obviously a big trend in the last 10 years about getting fitted for irons and adjustable drivers. But to me, the most important club in your bag is your putter. And the second is probably your driver. It could be vice versa. The putter is the one you use the most, and that you're guaranteed generally to use it on most every hole. And unless you're getting in. So it should be fitted. That's your scoring club. And if you putt well, then you score well. So it needs to be fitted.
The putter is one thing. Having equipment that's not going to inhibit you in any way is very important. But how important then is technique?
Different techniques, or I guess maybe methodologies of putting. There's no one wrong or right way to do it as long as it repeats.
Right.
And I think that is the most important thing, is a repeatable stroke. We've seen throughout history many different successful putters, and very few of them are actually alike. But they have a couple common threads. One is a good tempo, forearms aligned, they read putts well, acceleration, stuff like that. But the lie angles and the lengths and all that seems to change, and it's changed throughout history. Some of it, I think, is due to the golf ball and the greens themselves being manicured. But the stroke itself, like a golf swing, in my opinion, that a putting stroke is a small section of a full swing. It's just a piece of the pie at the bottom. And so a golf club or an iron or a driver does not travel on a straight line. It's not straight back. It's not straight through. And so the putter itself, generally on a pendulum motion, would have a slight arc to it, more or less, depending on the player and how upright or flat it is. So as long as that repeats and the putter is not putting any sort of excessive torque or any torque on your grip, it makes it a lot easier to repeat the motion. And as soon as you add torque to your hands, then your small muscles are going to start trying to compensate and do things because your eyes are going to see the putter is not, in the position or what you call face angle that maybe you want it in. So then it sends a signal to your hand and your hands start trying to make the putter do what it's supposed to do. And in my case, we build putters that just do that by itself and your hands don't need to do anything. You just pull it back and go.
Right. So when you're putting, that's it. Just pull it back, shoulders forward, basically.
Yeah, I think on a lot of putting strokes, you have some players that have a little more wrist action, for lack of a technical term, a little hand action in there. And I think that provides a little feel for some people, maybe the length of the stroke. But then, part of the putting stroke is your big muscles too. So there's always a combination. And a lot of that's, based upon the player's preference and what they can mentally be comfortable with and repeat. Again, comes back to repetition. We see some of these long putters and you see a lot more shoulder rocking, big muscles with the long putter. And you get down in little short putters like Jack Nicklaus and Palmer and those players back in the 50s and 60s that they had leaned over a bunch and they had a little wrist pop stroke going. And things have changed, but some people still do that. As long as they repeat, that's the key.
Right, gotcha. Now, one characteristic of the putter that I really like is the grip. It's certainly unique. I've not seen a grip like it. Explain a little bit about that.
The typical grip, and again, this kind of goes back to the wooden golf clubs, the putters, the putting, what they call a putting cleat, before it's called the putter, was a round grip and toe hang, obviously an L-shaped head. And when you have a round grip, the putter and your hands tend to let the face rotate to the arc. And then somewhere along the line, I'm not exactly sure the date, but there was a flat side put on top of the grip.
Where your thumb sit.
Yeah, right. And through a lot of testing, and there's been several companies, SamLab Putts, and some test results that show if a grip does not have a flat side, the body tends to let the putter rotate towards the arc. If there is a flat side on the grip and the putter swings back, the thumbs tell the brain to keep the putter face square to the target line. So relative to the arc, the putter in the backswing is actually closing to the arc that a putter would swing on, and then actually opening on the fall. It's called the rocker blocker kind of heel stroke type. So with my grip, I do like target orientation. And so it's an elliptical shape. And the long axis of the grip is parallel to the target line and perpendicular to the face top line of the putter. So when you have your eyes closed, you can instantly tell where the face is, but without a flat side on the grip. And then, of course, I think the thing that you're probably getting at the most is that the shaft tilts through the grip at 3 degrees, this particular grip that you saw at the show. And that is to allow the shaft to be leaned forward toward the target, but have your hand in a vertical position, or what you might call the bottom of a pendulum. And the neat thing about it is that it puts your hands ahead of the club face, but without feeling forward lean in your grip. And that allows you to think pendulum. And at the time the grip hits vertical is the same time the back of the golf ball and the face of the golf club make contact.
Yeah. And this is something I was speaking to my coach afterwards, Peter Croker. The grip, I think, is a very important design because you're talking about the grip with a flat grip on the top. So that's kind of like, in terms of like the shape of those grips, they're almost opposite to what you have. And if you put it in your hands, you can feel that sort of rotation with the grip sort of, I guess, the fatter sides being on top and below. You rotate around it very easily with the grip in your hands, whereas yours, we've changed it you don't rotate because it can't.
Right. Yeah. It feels weird if you do. It's just,
Yeah, exactly. It does.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to have a shape that communicated to the brain, where your target orientation is, but without a flat side on it. And it fills the palms into your lifelines. Instead of going long from thumbs to your fingers, it's your palms. And good putters, that's another great thing that all good putters have, is they generally have the shaft of the putter is aligned to the forearms and the palms are opposing instead of, both under, both on top, or, oddball grips. And so I just wanted to make a shape that ergonomically promotes palms opposing without a flat side that gives you target awareness. And it's exactly what this grip does. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I guess if you're with the flat side on the top, you can use your thumbs and you can really twist the shaft very easily with very little torque. But with your grip, it actually engages the forearms and almost can't move to twist the grip with your thumbs. You need to engage the rest of your arms, which I guess it's very easy to understand. With those bigger muscles, it's something that you shouldn't be doing. So it's a lot easier to stop yourself from doing it.
It really doesn't magnify the face angle, but it lets you feel it much sooner. If you put one of my grips on another putter, it actually makes the putter work better.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Bill, because I love your putter, but it just doesn't catch my eye totally. And as I said to Pete, I said, you know what? I think if I just change the grip on my putter, it's going to give me a pretty good result.
It does. I agree. When you launch a product, you don't want it to look like anything else. And so we had a lot of things going in this the Reno model is what we call it. I wanted it to stand out in the crowd, and that was kind of intentional. And at the same time, it doesn't fit all players' eyes. Once you start using it though, and you see the results, it's almost like when we were hitting persimmons and then the Big Bertha came out and nobody liked it. It's like, oh my God, you want me to play this? Are you kidding me? And then you go out and hit it. You're like, God, it's ugly, but man, it worked. And that's where we've garnered an iconic look. But this was from feedback on social media and stuff. And they said, man, it's kind of hard to get over the looks at first, but it only took about 5 or 6 putts or a couple rounds. Yeah. And I don't even see it anymore. I make a lot of putts, and that's what I wanted.
What's your distribution channel for getting the putter into people's hands?
Well, in the continental United States, we specifically focus on green grass accounts, or what you call golf stores, driving ranges, PGA accredited facilities, because it is an extremely fine-tuned putter to each an individual player, that we're not really after the big retail chains because they don't fit. They don't have qualified professionals working on property that can fit putters and get a player into good shape. So we do that. And then on my website, one of the things that I was able to overcome with what we call remote fitting, and that's on my directcourse.com website, that we're able to fit anybody anywhere in the world. As long as they have an iPhone or a video, they can email it to me, and there's directions to take a quick video, and I can analyze the shaft plane relative to vertical in the background. And then the player, all they have to do is measure from the center of the face to the butt end of the club. And I will tell them what their lie angle is. And then they say, what the length is. And it's really neat. Like I could fit you. I'm in the state, and we're thousands of miles apart, but I could fit you in about 10 minutes. Yep. And from the comfort of your own home, as far as I know, this is the only system that you can actually get fitted from the comfort of your own home, which is really cool. And I've had absolutely fantastic feedback and results. We had fitted some of the Golf WRX guys for a review. And so we fitted them with our fitting putter at the PGA show. And just as a test, and I didn't remember the numbers myself because I fitted, 100 people or something. So they said, all right, well, we have our numbers. We'd like to test your remote fitting. So they sent the videos to me, I analyzed them, and the one of them I hit dead on, and the other one I missed by a degree. And that was simply because he had a different model putter and he had different shoes on. And believe it or not, the height of the shoes, whether you're wearing flip-flops or you're wearing leather-heeled dress shoes, will actually change. And so in my fitting system, I always, remind the player to take the video wearing the shoes that they prefer to wear, because the height of the shoe can actually change the fitting.
Does the height of the shoe also affect iron fittings and driver fittings?
Absolutely. I can't tell you. I use biomotion sensors to fit golf clubs, and the spine angle would change because people will lean over slightly more or less depending on the heel height to make their iron sole out flat. And that actually I've captured it. I've proven it. I have all the data. Is typically when a player has a real flat shoe, like a spikeless shoe, their posture tends to become a little more upright than, let's say, if they were wearing a pair of Nike Air golf shoes or some of these real high-heeled shoes. Then, they're always trying to get that club when it's sitting in the grass or on a mat to be sold out. And it can change their spine angle, 1, 2, 3 degrees. And so when I fit, yeah, for sure.
What does that mean? Because obviously your shoes are going to run out quicker than your irons or your clubs will. Does that mean you need to be conscious of selecting shoes with similar qualities
Yeah, absolutely.
or just going and get refit?
I really do. I didn't care what brand it was, but I always wanted to sell irons that were bendable, whether they're forged or soft castings, it doesn't really matter. But a lot of people now, they just prefer spikeless shoes and they tend to be a little lower to the ground than an old pair of FootJoy Classic. So then from that perspective, I ask them when I fit, and this should be something that all your listeners should be aware of, is when they go in for a fitting and, maybe it's an indoor facility and they go in with their tennis shoes on, running style shoes, that those could be a half inch or an inch, even sometimes farther off the ground than a pair of spikeless shoes. And that definitely changes your height. And when you change your height, you change your specs. So pretty easy.
It's such a simple thing.
Yeah. And you'll see that some people will grip down on the golf club. They get fitted with tennis shoes and then they wear spikeless shoes out to the golf course. And all of a sudden they feel like they've got to grip down to the middle of the grip or the lower part of the grip to get in the same position. Yeah. You see it all the time. I think they do it subconsciously. As a pro, when I'm watching, I can see it a mile away. I mean, it's so obvious, but people don't realize what's going on. Yeah. For fitting putters and the remote fitting, we definitely like to be conscious of what shoe style that the player is wearing and that make sure that's what they're going to be playing golf in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, your actual fitting club, that in itself is quite ingenious.
Yeah, I started that many years ago. I helped design the national fitting program and systems with the Golf Tech. And I was on their panel for, me and a few other pros chimed in and said, well, this is, kind of the things we do. And I always like fitting with motion sensors and to set somebody's spine angle and then have their stance and then bring their hands together. And as the old system goes, when I was a ping fitter, we'd take a wrist to floor measurement. You can have two people that have the exact same wrist to floor measurement. However, one fella is very narrow shouldered and the other fella may be very broad shouldered. So his reach would be longer, but the measurement from wrist to floor is identical. But when they lean over and they bring their hands together, the fella that has the wider shoulders or more muscle impingement in his pecs, they're either going to have to lean over more or they have to play a slightly longer golf club. But the initial static measurement would be identical from...
Identical.
Yeah. And so I changed that as part of my fitting, dynamic fitting. Using dynamic fitting kind of means, we're going to skip a club off a lie board and see,
Yep.
That's the real word for dynamic fitting. I use the term relative to using motion sensors so that the spine angle, knee flex, and then you bring your hands together. That's the number. That's the only number I care about in the initial fitting stage. And then we adjust lie angle to that measurement. I fit length first and then lie angle second.
Yep. So how long does it take to go through a fitting with your fitting club?
For the putter, it's toot sweet. And there's just a few minutes. When I fit for irons, which I don't do much anymore because I'm not with Golf Tech anymore, but it would take about an hour, a real comprehensive fitting. And that does the length, grip size, lie angle, shaft weight, head design and shaft flex. Those are the, your big ones.
Yep. Fantastic. The Reno is kind of like a mallet style putter. Do you have a blade or anything in the works?
Well, funny you say that. Yeah. This is top secret on the podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, there is a blade and it does exist. And I'm not going to release it till probably next year, Florida, at the Florida PGA show. One of the things as a pro and running a golf shop for many years, I'd get stuck with inventory every time a large company would release a new golf club. They do it too much. And so it kind of eats into your bottom line. And now that we got this directed force putter company, I'll release a new model every year, every 2 years. So we released the Reno model at this year's PGA show. And that was our big, splash in the industry, jump in the deep water and start swimming. So next year we hope to be doing well enough, which after this show, I can't keep up right now. I can, but it's to bring on some extra staff. And so, we hope to release the mid mallet and the blade and then other iconic designs. So I just want to make sure that the blade is inherently less stable than a mallet because it only,
of course,
has heel toe weighting instead of front, back and heel toe weighting. So a little bit less moment of inertia to start with.
Sure. So one thing I guess for our listener, potentially, if you're looking at getting this putter, if they haven't used the putter before and they go out and buy it, what happens if they don't like it? What happens if it's not for them?
Yeah, that never happens. We were a small startup company and the putters are fitted. If somebody gets misfitted through a facility, then, we take it on a case by case basis.
Yeah.
And I'll go to all ends to make sure the product fits right. We know the physics work right and the revealer demonstrates it. And honestly, I don't think I've had one person really say, well, I want my money back. And the people use this and they go out and they roll it around and they're like, oh my God, this is great. So we actually haven't had to even deal with that. It's one of those lucky things, I guess. The physics make it work, and that's all that really matters. But we don't have a guarantee return policy, stuff like that, because in a small startup, if you sell a bunch of putters and somebody, a big place says, well, we want to send all of them back.
Yeah.
It's a tough thing to
It's tough. Yeah, absolutely.
But we haven't even had that problem in the 2 years. And I started releasing the putters maybe about 2 years ago on not advertised. And then about this time last year, we actually got our business license and started, the real business part. Since that time, Jake, I've only seen one putter on eBay.
Wow.
And I didn't even know where it came from. It was a handmade putter that I made probably 2.5 years ago. But it popped up on eBay just the other day and somebody said, hey man, I saw your putter on eBay. I'm like, what? So, but out of all those putters, there's probably 800 of them out there. People like them, and we haven't had to deal with that problem too much.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I think I first saw the putter, I reckon it would have been Andrew Fisher around the time of, was it the Las Vegas PGA show?
Yeah, Fish Fit, my guy.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. So that's the first time I saw it. And certainly you got a lot of fantastic feedback and buzz around this year's show. Everybody was talking about it.
It was good. Yeah. Fish Fit. You guys check out his YouTube channel, by the way. He's a great guy and he was a PGA Tour caddy. So he knows what's good and he can play anything he wants. But we had met at the Vegas show and he was pretty stoked about the science and whatnot. And so he just messaged me. I didn't realize this, but he was been doing all his video blogs using my putter. And he says, hey, have you seen my blogs? I said, no. So I get online. I'm like, holy cow.
They're good. Fish was actually the first guest on the podcast.
Oh.
Yeah. So there you go. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, where can our listener find out more about directed force putter?
Well, there's a couple places, directedforce.com.
Yep.
And then I'm pretty active on Facebook with Directed Force Putters on Facebook. There's also Press Grips on Facebook. And I've done some pretty neat hand-poured grips that's very limited releases. But anytime we have something new or something fun to put up, tournament wins, we always put it up on our Facebook page. I'm starting to get a little more active in Twitter, which is DF Putters on Twitter, and then DF Putters on Instagram, which we're just starting to use those social medias a little bit more, but mainly on Facebook.
Fantastic. Well, Bill, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Listener, thank you very much for tuning in. We'll speak again soon.
It was a pleasure meeting you and Mr. Croker. Really look forward to chatting more in the future as we move along.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Bill.
All right. Thanks, Jake. Take care.